I think there was a great injustice done. And I'm not necessarily just talking about this past election. I think that it's going to affect the upcoming elections if something is not done to overturn it. It moves it changes the whole dynamics of voting in general. I was always taught every vote counts, and we see that's not evident anymore. I'm very much concerned about the upcoming elections, particularly in our district, in District 3. What could happen? Because it can be very much tampered with. So there was not a lot of education that was done by those who proposed this initiative. Anywhere that I go inside of the pockets within our district, no one came to the face. No one came from ethnicities differently. But I don't think it has. I think that's an insult to say because you're black you didn't understand it. I think it was a cross-cultural miseducation. And when I say miseducation, I mean it missed us. There was no education about it. So I would beg you guys to take a critical look at it. I think it will affect each one of you if you don't, coming up real soon, because everybody has the opportunity to play games on you. And us as constituents and community members, we would like to be able to participate or at least learn how the loopholes can be played in this thing, because it is a game, and those who understand it a little bit better have the advantage. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
When I think about ranked choice voting, I think about when I was a kid, and we call ranking was like, capping on one another, talking about one another. And I found at the end of the day that ranked choice voting was just a joke. But it left some real changes in our city. I call for political leadership. That I think that being here is one step. But the political leadership that has to occur is the raising of funds and collecting of signatures to have the issue put back on the ballot. This was not instant runoff. It was sold to the voters, I believe, 6 or 8 years ago as instant runoff. And I can tell you, my friends, I saw nothing instant about this process. Over in San Francisco, they had 48, close to 50 instances of runoff. Over here we had, 11 or 12, so there was nothing instant about this. It was rank, of course, rank assuredly. And I ask today that we join together, those who believe that this needs to be repealed. It will never be repealed in this body. I don't believe it. I believe that it has to go back to the voters, it has to go back door to door, and it has to be put on the ballot by the people who are the stakeholders of this city. And so us being here today, thank you for your time, but I believe it is best served out there with the people to put it back on the ballot at the demand of the people. God bless them.
A lot of people in East Oakland, and one conversation that stands out, I met an elderly black lady on 105th and Topanga. When I asked her if she was going to vote, she gave me a real serious look and told me she was going to vote. Even though she was crippled, she still was going to go walk to the polls. She told me when she was 18, she didn't have the right to vote. She marched on Washington with Martin Luther King and saw people get hoses sprayed on them, saw people get attacked by dogs, and even saw people die for their civil rights. And today, in 2010, if she did not vote the correct way, she had no say in the final outcome of the election. She was turned away. If she decided to vote for people that looked like her, that supported that she thought represented her, say she voted for Terrence Campbell number 1, Marcy Hodge number 2, and L.L. Young number 3, then she had no say in the decisive round. So over 50 years after she marched on Washington, she was disenfranchised and lost the right to vote. This is the first, can I get the slides up on the screen? So for the first time in over 60 years, we have a mayor of Oakland with less than 50% majority support, 45%. With 45% of vote, and that amounts to over 14,000 people that did not get a say in the outcome of the election. That's 11.8% of the community of Oakland. 14,000 people, more than the population of Malibu, more than the population of Piedmont, more than the population of Emeryville. Entire communities, entire cities basically got disenfranchised. This is wrong. That is what I'm here to say. Right now, I just want to bring everyone see this Declaration of Independence. What I want to highlight is that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it's the right of the people to alter and abolish them. You here at this committee here have the ability to right or wrong, to make sure that lady that I met and talked to on 105th Topanga has the right to vote next time if she's still alive in 2014. In a regular election, 1 equals 1. 1 plus 1 equals 2. In IRV, that's not the case. First of all, I'd like to challenge the definition of a vote. They say that if you vote for Parada, it's the same as if you voted number 1, Tunin, number 2, Kwan, and number 3, Kaplan. I challenge that definition. It's not the same. Your first choice is different than your second and third choice. You have participated in different elections. It is not the same. You can make coalitions and then you can change the weight. In District 7, the precincts that I've established, equal amount of voters, 2,500 voters. In the precincts of District 7, 70% of these voters voted for either Parada or Kwan, number 1. So they only got to vote one time. In the selected precincts in District 2, Parada and Kwan got 45% of the vote. So 45% of the people voted once. 55% of people got to vote maybe 2 times, maybe 3 times. And when you do the math, it shows that these original 2,500 votes, including vote transfers, in East Oakland ends up being 3,200 votes. In District 2 in Crocker Highlands, it ends up being 4,100 votes. So it ends up being that your weight of a vote in East Oakland is 4/5 of that of a vote in Crocker Highlands. So it takes 5 black voters in East Oakland to equal 4 white voters in Crocker Highlands. And this brings me up to something that's very dear to my heart. The 3/5 compromise. Many of you guys learned about it in school. But the 3/5 compromise, the federal ratio, had the major effect of pre-Civil War affairs due to disproportionate representation of slaveholding states towards voters. And here in East Oakland, we have disproportionate representation, and this has made the cause. This is a problem. And people have said IRV works because it saves money for an election. What's the cost of getting the second best candidate? What's the cost of getting the wrong candidate? I say that democracy should not be held hostage to small amounts of cost.
Thank you.
Ranked choice voting is kind of like asbestos. It seemed like a good idea at the time. 5 years ago when Oakland passed Measure O, there was not much debate on the issue or actual RCV votes to study. But all the cool kids were doing it and Oakland wanted to give it a try. In those 5 years and looking at these elections, we've learned 3 things. Number 1, it does not provide winners with majority support. Number 2, if you are not white, speak English, affluent, or well-educated, you are more likely to make mistakes on your ballot. And number 3, many cities have had buyer's remorse and have repealed ranked choice voting. Council members De La Fuentes and Kaplan deserve credit for realizing minorities are more likely not to fill out their ballots properly in asking for nearly $250,000 in education. They got less than 50% of that. These reports on the education efforts are lacking in providing specific and measurable results. It's not enough to say what you did. I have no doubt that many phone calls were made and the Register of Voters held many seminars. I went to one. I was the only one there. It's not uncommon for RCV supporters to claim victory before all the bodies are counted, and that's what these reports do. They outline their strategy and methods, but do not count the bodies. That's why a comprehensive RCV report, as defined by the city charter, which maps overvote rates by precincts, is important to gauge if certain classes of people were disenfranchised. In addition, I would suggest a review of whether people filled out their ballots properly versus a valid ballot. There's a clear distinction here. You could have voted for Prada in your first choice, and you could have put 2 in your second choice because it had number 2, and 3 in your third choice. That still would have counted as a valid ballot, but I contend to you that voter was confused at the process. Over the years, San Francisco has spent millions of dollars in RCV education, and in the recent election, underserved neighborhoods had a significantly high overvote rate, some up to 8%.
Let me just say that I was asked to come here to speak today by a number of voters, some 6,000 plus who felt that they were disenfranchised, particularly in the flats of Oakland, particularly African American, who believed that the process was disenfranchising, first of all, but secondly, that they were provided with miseducation. And this is why I had an issue with you before when we talked about education of the folks. We should have been talking about miseducation, because that is exactly what happened. What happened was you had a bunch of people who were going out telling folks, oh no, 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 if you vote this way, you're going to have a problem. Oh no, no, if you vote this way, that's considered an overvote. If you vote Terrence Candell way, and I know you all observed, it was probably in the newspaper a number of times and even on television, that if you vote for Terrence Candell on our 3 lines, your vote won't count. Well, they didn't, right until the last minute, right before the election, admit that you could vote for a person 3 times. And by that time, they waged a campaign that was totally and completely miseducative. Now, the other thing that I want to say here is that I visited personally some 500 churches during the last year and a half. And these folks who claim that they've been going out in the community providing this education that you funded were never there. And more importantly, those people have never heard anything about it. So what kind of education were they providing?
And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about this, I think, critical issue in regards to the way that Oakland runs elections. This is not about the results of this past November. More importantly, it's about the impact on the community, particularly African American community, low income, less educated, so forth. There's a large plaque on the steps leading up to this council chamber that says the people of Oakland erected this edifice as the seat of municipal government, a monument dedicated to civic loyalty and to the just and equal administration of these ordinances which make for social and political betterment in community life. And I contend, and the data supports it, that ranked choice voting is rank in terms of what it has done to the African American voice, in particular in electoral politics here in Oakland. There is enough data that shows that, as Rugi was pointing out earlier, a black vote in Oakland was 4/5 the weight in terms of the algorithm that is used in rating the multiple rounds in ranked choice voting than folks coming from more affluent or white parts of our community. Considering that you spend $3.30 for each voter contact for your outreach and education program, the question needs to be asked, how do you gauge the results of that? What kind of bang did you get for your buck? And where's the data that shows that the neighborhoods in which these outreach efforts occurred actually performed better than those in which it didn't occur? And the fact of the matter is the data shows that the exact opposite is the truth. In District 6 and 7, I live in 6, in District 3, there are a number of precincts that indicate that the percentage of overvotes in those precincts are as high as 4, 5, 6%. And if you compare them with other precincts from the hills, there are precincts in the hills where there was 0% overvotes. That's something that needs to be investigated, and that's a concern that I hope you take seriously.